created at AVAIYA is what the world needs.
Hello, AVAIYA family. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner, Ike Allen, and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of AVAIYA University. AVAIYA is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Wendy Behary, is with us today to talk about hypersexual narcissism and betrayal trauma. With over 25 years of professional experience and advanced level certifications, Wendy is an author and the founder and director of the Cognitive Therapy Center of New Jersey and the Schema Therapy Institutes of New Jersey, New York City, and DC. She has been treating clients, training professionals, and supervising psychotherapists for more than 20 years now. And she has a specialty in treating narcissists and the people who live and deal with them. Welcome to AVAIYA, Wendy.
Thank you, Andy. It's nice to be with you.
Yeah, great to have you. I'm so excited that we could have you on today talking about this topic. I know you've had quite a few years of experience in this, so I think this is great. Why don't we get started with you? Just a little background on you. You have, such an extensive history of working in this world. Like, how did you get into what you do today?
Oh boy. Let's see. I'll try to be very brief about this. I've been at this for a few decades now, and I like to say that working with the population of people with issues of narcissism wasn't something I sought out. It kind of sought me out and became an area of specialization over time, and a lot through learning by way of making mistakes and being triggered and being as activated as anyone else when you're dealing with this population, because they are so challenging and can be so difficult to confront. And so there's a lot of years of working alongside people I respect, like Jeffrey Young, and developing a model that could be effective in treating this population, also helping those who are living with and dealing with narcissism in their lives. So my time is split between consulting and psychotherapy, as well as writing and teaching, as you already mentioned. And my book is now in its third edition, which I'm very excited and proud about, Disarming the Narcissist, which came out again in October. So
great. Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate the background and how you got to doing what you do today. And so, okay, let's talk about the topic of hypersexuality. For people who don't know what that term is, could you share a little bit about what that is, and then why is it that narcissists are so prone to it?
when we think about hypersexuality, other key phrases might be excessive sexual preoccupation, sexual addiction might fall into that category. It is particularly not surprising when it comes to those with issues of narcissism, because narcissists have tendencies to seek out self-stimulating activity as a means of cutting off connection to their own emotional world, their own emotional pain, which lives at the core. We don't see that part. We see the bluster, we see the victimhood, the martyrs, the outstanding achievements, we see the control, we see the showing off, we see all those sort of magnanimous behaviors, grandiose behaviors, even aggressive behaviors. But we don't see, except for those of us who are working with them in treatment, is the underlying insecurities, vulnerabilities that they don't want to be connected to. And so they tend to go towards self-stimulating activity to just distract themselves. And sex, let's face it, is a self-stimulating activity. Mm-hmm. And for the narcissist who is not so poised with the capacity for intimacy, for emotional engagement with another, sex with a stranger, sex with your laptop, excessive pornographic exposure, purchasing sex through sex workers, prostitutes, cyber sex, even affairs, can be the narcissist's drug of choice, because it means no intimacy required, no empathy required, no emotional engagement required. It's all about me on my terms at my convenience, and if I have to pay for it, oh well, right? I can do it as much as I want and when I want. And so it's a dangerous and unfortunate reality for so many who have narcissistic personalities, and for those partners who end up in the phase of discovery of these secret lives that are just feel so betrayed and so hurt and so wounded by this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got it. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing a little bit about that. That makes sense as to why people who are narcissistic would tend to be more interested in sex in that way, or the addiction, right, to multiple partners, or affairs, etc. So you mentioned betrayal in there. So why do you think betrayal is more complex when a partner is narcissistic?
Yeah. This is a great question and an important question, because betrayal is always difficult. So we don't want to ever minimize how painful, how powerful the experience is for someone who's been betrayed by a loved one, someone who's supposed to be your safe other, someone you're supposed to turn to for refuge, for comfort when you've been violated. And if that someone is your partner, that's tough enough. But when they happen to be a narcissistic partner, what you get faced with is not only the reality of like living with the perpetrator of your pain, but also living with someone who feels entitled to do what they did. Entitlement, big word with narcissism. They go from denial to defending and justifying to devaluing and dismissing you. And they feel entitled. What's the big deal? And you don't take care of yourself anyway. And, it's bound to happen. All people do this. Men do this, since the largest proportion of these violators tend to be men. So there's a lot of justification. So the capacity for remorse and understanding and even commencing a healing journey is really complicated with this type of individual.
Yeah, I can see that, because I would imagine, people watching or listening right now, if they've had a betrayal and that person, we're talking about obviously like an affair or something, that kind of betrayal, right? If they've had that kind of betrayal with someone who then feels it, at the very least, right, they feel bad about what they've done. That's definitely a different experience than someone having absolutely no remorse and like you said, feeling entitled. That's got to be so difficult to deal with, even wrapping your head around someone feeling that way.
And it goes, this is after you've been through various interludes with the denying part, the gaslighting part. Didn't happen. They're trying to distort your reality. You're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about, to the trying to dismiss you and then devalue and blame you. The old shifting the blame to the partner. It's your fault, to finally, look, I'm going to do what I want. I work hard. No one appreciates that. I've earned the right to have a life. What do you want from me? I don't get what I need. And so now you're living with the entitled part. And it may take more radical proposals or decision making on the part of the betrayed partner to even begin to get the narcissist to consider the possibility of seeking help. Right? Mm-hmm. That becomes the motivational driver, is I don't want to fail, I don't want to lose face, I don't want to lose my relationship. Maybe not for all the right reasons, but it starts the engine.
Right. Yeah. And since you mentioned a narcissist seeking help for those reasons, that is not something we talk about very often. I think because so many people talk about how a narcissist would never want to get help because that's part of their personality. What's your experience? You work with both narcissistic personality disorder. You work with people dealing with the after effects of having someone like that in their life. So do you see a lot of people coming in wanting help to overcome, so to speak, their narcissism?
There's the big question, right? No. I mean, I've been treating narcissistic men primarily, some women, for a really long time. And I have seen many of them, not all of them, because they are a very difficult group of people to treat effectively, and for a number of reasons that I can talk about if you like. But they don't typically walk in willingly or voluntarily saying, please help me, I have a problem. Some will, but those are only under pretty drastic, catastrophic conditions, like a health crisis, or they've had their first panic attack. It's interfering with their work performance and their success and ambition, their drive, their edge. So they may come in looking for quick fixes, fix me fast, give me a pill, tell me what to say, tell me what to do. Most come to therapy because someone has issued a threat. Someone has said, get help, get out, get help, lose your job, get help or lose your driver's license. So there's some consequence that they absolutely don't want to face, and therapy seems the lesser of the two. That's what we call leverage. You have to have leverage. Without that, usually nothing even starts, let alone sustains.
Mm-hmm. And what do you see as the, I don't know, characteristics of people who actually move on to making change versus those that never, even if they come to see you or somebody, they still just never change?
Yeah, those who will abort the mission pretty early are those where the leverage is weak. So there's just not enough of a meaningful consequence to sustain them in the early phase of therapy. If you can sustain them in the early phase, the leverage may switch to their bond with you, the therapist. And you can have a good outcome if you have three things. You have to have that leverage to start. You have to, and that leverage has to switch to the therapy relationship, which means number two, the therapist has to be pretty sturdy, pretty robust, as I like to say, in their own skin. Mm-hmm. And that means being able to address difficult issues and confront and really put the puzzle pieces together and really assert the guidelines in the treatment room. You know, you're meeting needs, because narcissists typically don't understand limits. They don't understand, why can't I interrupt and say what I want when I want to? Everything's about, you know, I get to do as I please. And so we're really teaching them frustration tolerance, being uncomfortable, how to live in the world, how to share the planet with other people. And so it is a lot of what we call in schema therapy a reparenting type of work for this undeveloped part of them. If you have a sturdy enough self and an effective, number three, effective treatment approach, then all those three things put together, you stand a fairly decent chance of moving this to something meaningful and something lasting. Mm-hmm. But without those three things, and they're all pretty equally important, chances are therapy is not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the term that you just said, frustration tolerance. I've never thought about it that way, right? That's something that, right, you would imagine most people learn when they're a child, learning to share, learning to, you know, be nice to your sister or your brother, right? Some things like that,
yes,
that a lot of people in these cases don't learn. So yes, just bringing it back to those basics, frustration tolerance. Okay.
Yeah, they don't learn it because there's so much emphasis placed on performance and ambition and success and being extraordinary, being the best of the best. And so not a lot of emphasis placed on connection and that just those interpersonal skills. And perhaps even, you know, we assume maybe some degree of temperament, sensitivity, impulsivity that needs to be, you know, kind of relearned, revamped in later days. That wasn't well developed early on, like empathy, you know, because of the great misunderstanding that narcissists can't be empathic. They can learn to become empathic, but it's a big deep dive into their own personal world before they can share that kind of appreciation for other people's experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.